This is a short video about how to use punctuation. This presentation addresses apostrophes, quotation marks, colons, and semicolons. For information about commas, review the commas presentation in this section of the website. Apostrophes are used to show ownership and to form contractions. Possessives are formed by using an apostrophe and sometimes the letter S. The possessive tells the reader that someone or something owns the next stated thing. For example, Montgomery's book, which is the book that belongs to Montgomery, or the student's tests, the tests that belong to the students. The key is deciding whether the possessor, or the thing or person doing the owning, is singular or plural. If it's singular, add an S, such as Montgomery's book or Jess's pen. If it's plural, just add an apostrophe, such as the girls' locker room. If it's plural and irregular, add an apostrophe S. So if it does not end in an S, but it's plural, add an apostrophe S, men's locker room. If it's joint ownership, add an apostrophe S to the last noun, such as Joellen and Cindy's apartment. Okay, so this is an apartment that Joellen and Cindy share. If it's individual ownership, add an apostrophe S to each noun, Joellen's and Cindy's apartments. Here they do not share an apartment, they each have their own. Contractions are seldom used in academic writing, so avoid them whenever possible. When you do need to form a contraction, use an apostrophe in place of the missing letter or letters. Avoid misuses of the apostrophe. So do not use an apostrophe to form a plural. Even when you are forming the plural of a number. So for figure eights, when you're forming the plural of the word 8, then just use 8 and the letter S. Don't use 8 apostrophe S. Quotation marks are used to indicate exact words taken from either a written or a spoken source, and they're also used to set off titles of short works. So here are some examples. Shakespeare wrote All the World's a Stage. Okay, so those are the exact words that Shakespeare wrote. Here's a longer example. If you have a quote that's more than one sentence, keep it all within a single set of quotation marks. And this last example shows you how to punctuate the title of a short story. In all three examples, you'll notice that the quote comes at the end of the sentence, and you'll see that the period comes within or inside the quotation marks. So when you use quotation marks and you have other punctuation to consider, remember that periods and commas always go inside quotation marks. Colons are used after a complete sentence to introduce a list. Okay, so you have to have a complete sentence to use a colon in this way. Right, Composition 1 students learn different rhetorical modes. That's a complete sentence. So I can use a comma before I list what those rhetorical modes are. Okay, narration, example, compare and contrast, and definition. If I don't have a complete sentence before a list, for example, here I have Composition 1 students learn, and then I have a list, and that's not a complete sentence. Composition 1 students learn, okay, so I do not use a colon in this case. Colons are also used after the salutation of a letter. Semicolons are used to join two closely related sentences or to separate items in a list that contains commas. Okay, so if If you want to see more information about joining complete sentences, go to the complete sentences section of this website. But here's a short example for you. Many people are against capital punishment. However, there are others who fully support it. You can see that where that semicolon is, I could put a period if I wanted to, and I would have two complete sentences. Okay, so this is a correct use of the semicolon. Here's an example of how to use a semicolon to punctuate a list. So you'll see I've got a list of 3 things: Lincoln, Nebraska, St. Louis, Missouri, and Sacramento, California. In each of those items, you'll see I've got a comma that separates the city and the state. Okay, so it would look a little odd if I put Lincoln, comma, Nebraska, comma, to end that first item in the list. So to avoid any potential confusion, I change what should be a comma to a semicolon. Lincoln, comma, Nebraska, semicolon. And that way it's visually apparent where the first item in that list ends. For more information about punctuation use, check out the online writing lab or the OWL at Purdue.